Just going to give you a quick rundown of the Kite810 versus the MA850, my feeling and opinions of these two wings and who I think these wings suit best. I was first riding the MA850 quite a lot. I was riding that in Hood River and I'd ridden it before previous to getting onto Naish. And the MA is probably a wing that I feel like I'm more familiar with, like straight off the bat. The MA has more of a kind of surfy feeling than the Kite810 does. It's more rectangle shape, puts the surface area kind of evenly over the wing. So if you're more into doing turns and slides on top of the water, I think the MA850 is actually probably a better choice for that kind of thing. The 810 can do slides and turns on top of the water, but the 810 is a bit more of a locked-in feeling than the MA850. At first, I didn't particularly like the Kite810, this wing here, because it does feel a bit more stiff than the MA850 does. But that kind of stiff feeling and that tracking actually gives you a lot of drive. So if you want to ride fast and turn really hard, the Kite810 is actually a better choice than the MA850 for that style of riding. You can turn really hard and you'll get drive and get speed out of the turns on the Kite810, where I don't think you get that kind of drive and speed out of the turns on the MA850. That said, I think if you're looking for more of an all-round wing, I think the Kite series, the 810, the 650, they're probably better wings, and I think for just an average person, they might even be easier to ride because they are a bit more locked in. The MA850 probably suits people that are more like a surfer skater kind of vibe, and they're used to that kind of looser feeling. It's sort of a bit like having a bit looser trucks riding the MA850 than it is riding the Kite810. That said, I don't think you can really go wrong with either of the wings. I think they're both good for different things, and having both of these wings in your quiver is probably a pretty good choice just so you can perform different types of things on the water, because the way they ride really makes you do kind of a different style of foiling when you're on the water, and I think that's a really cool way to look at it. The 650 versus the 810, it's basically exactly the same thing. It's just a smaller version of the 810, and all that gives you is like a bit less drag. So the 650 does ride at a higher speed easier than the 810 does. You can push the 810 quite quick, but the 650 is easier to maintain a faster speed, and it's easier to keep carving at a faster speed on the 650. As for the MA range, I don't think I'd go above the 850 unless you're a really heavy person, like 95 kg plus. I wouldn't step up to the 1000 MA. I think the 850 wing already is a pretty thick wing, and with that is already quite kind of draggy and lifty. So if you're riding a bigger size of the MA, I think it's just going to feel too slow and lifty for most kiters. It's not necessary. I think the MA850 is really the only size of the MA wing you should be looking at if you're thinking of getting that style of wing. I was riding both the Kite810, the Kite650 and the MA850 with the HA220 stabilizer, which I've cut the wingtips off. So my kind of opinion of all these wings, I had that baseline, just this same tail wing, had the standard length fuselage, and either the 75 or 85 carbon masts. So I feel like this size rear wing is a really good choice for me. It's still quite quick, it doesn't have too much drag, and it's a bit looser without the wingtips on it. If you're still wanting a bit more of a locked-in feel, and especially if you're just beginning, I think leaving the wingtips on is probably a good idea for you because it just adds stability. If you want a bit looser ride and you want a little bit less drag, chopping the wingtips off this 220 is a pretty good option, and I think it feels pretty good like this. There's one other new wing coming that you could consider as well. The smaller sizes of the Mach1 wing are probably a really good choice for kiting too. They're going to be less draggy than the 810. They're going to be a bit higher top speed, which will give you a bit better performance. But with that higher performance and less drag, obviously it's not going to be as smooth rail to rail as the 810 is. But if you want to step up to something faster and you want the least drag possible, I'd consider looking at those smaller sizes of the Mach1. So yeah, that's my rundown of the Naish Foils range and the foils that I think are worth looking at for kiting. If you've got any questions, just hit me up in the comments. I'm happy to help you out. Hope you have fun out there. Cheers.